Jesus warned us. When you see these three signs, it's already too late. Number 1. The only 4 signs of the last days. The Bible is a history book, but it is unlike any other history book available in any public library. The history of the Bible starts with the creation of the earth and ends with the end of the world. No other history book has ever been published that covers such a broad range of events on planet Earth, partially because no one was present at the start to witness and document it, and therefore no one can write the beginning of our world authoritatively, and as you'll see, no other book dares to reveal how it will all end with such accuracy. And the end it describes is closer than we think. But if no one saw the beginning, how do we know the ending? We are the only folks in the whole world who know how it will all end. That is unique. The Lord did not reveal the future to his followers to satisfy their curiosity. It was to prepare them for the future so that they would not be surprised when it arrived, and that they would not misinterpret it. Be grateful that Jesus was so forthright in sharing what the future holds for us. But what if we have misunderstood one of his key warnings, and it's happening right now? Because what comes next may rewrite everything we thought we understood about prophecy. If we miss the real signs, we may walk blindly into the storm. People ask, are we in the end times? However, the Bible talks of the last days, and we have been in the last days for 2,000 years. The last days started at Pentecost, where the first prophecy of the last days was fulfilled. What began as a spark in Jerusalem is now a fire reaching the ends of the earth. The Bible is a book full of predictions. Its pages contain 735 predictions about the future. A prediction can be found in 1/4 of the Bible's chapters. From beginning to end, it is basically a prophetic text, though some books focus more on predictions than others. But not all predictions are comforting. Some are terrifying. 596 of the 735 predictions have indeed occurred and have literally come true according to the scripture prediction. But if 81% have already come true, the final 19% may hit with unbearable force. So, 81% of all Bible prophecies have already come true, and some of those prophecies were made centuries before the case. It doesn't take much confidence to believe that the remaining 19% will happen as well. That's a very high score. Jesus told us to watch and pray. But are we watching the right things, or are we being distracted by the wrong signs? What do we watch? We cannot stand still and watch the clouds to wait for him to appear. That is not what he meant. He meant, keep an eye on what's going on in the world and see what signs I gave you to help you prepare. But how do we know if what's happening in our world today is the final signal? Or just another rehearsal? Signals are the signs. The final sign won't come with a trumpet for warning. It will come like a thief in the night. It will feel ordinary until it's too late. So let's look at Matthew chapter 24, where the disciples asked him, what will be the signs or signals of your return? What would we do if we don't know when it's going to happen? To their inquiry, Jesus gave a direct and unambiguous answer. We can thank God that he responded in such a straightforward manner. Yet even clear answers can be twisted if people only hear what they want to believe. In the book of Revelation, he gives a much more detailed and comprehensive response, but here he gives a rundown of the signs that will precede his arrival. And when those signs begin, there will be no going back, no slowing down, no timeouts. While he was seated on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately and said, tell us, when will this take place? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end, the completion, the consummation of the age? Jesus answered them, be careful that no one misleads you, deceiving you and leading you into error. For many will come in, on the strength of my name, appropriating the name which belongs to me, saying, I am the Christ, the Messiah, and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened or troubled, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in place after place. All this is but the beginning, the early pains of the birth, pangs of the intolerable anguish. Then they will hand you over to suffer affliction and tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended and repelled and will begin to distrust and desert him whom they ought to trust and obey, and will stumble and fall away and betray one another and pursue one another with hatred. And many false prophets will rise up and deceive and lead many into error. And the love of the great body of people will grow cold because of the multiplied lawlessness and iniquity. But he who endures to the end will be saved. And this good news of the kingdom, the gospel, will be preached throughout the whole world as a testimony to all the nations. And then will come the end. So when you see the appalling sacrilege, the abomination that astonishes and makes desolate, spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader take notice and ponder and consider and heed this. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not come down and go into the house to take anything. And let him who is in the field not turn back to get his overcoat. And alas for the women who are pregnant, and for those who have nursing babies in those days. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, affliction, distress, and oppression, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now. No, and never will be, again. And if those days had not been shortened, no human being would endure and survive. But for the sake of the elect, God's chosen ones, those days will be shortened. If anyone says to you then, behold, here is the Christ, the Messiah, or there he is, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise, and they will show great signs and wonders so as to deceive and lead astray, if possible, even the elect, God's chosen ones. See, I have warned you beforehand. So if they say to you, behold, he is in the wilderness, desert, do not go out there. If they tell you, behold, he is in the secret places or inner rooms, do not believe it. Matthew 24. Now, in that passage, he gave 4 distinct signs of his coming. One of the 4 signs is already there, while the other 3 are not. That is why, I say, we are in the beginning of the end times. And what you're about to see next will reveal just how close we really are. So, what exactly are these 4 signs he gave us? The first is clearly disasters in the world, and he mentions, for example, wars, famines, and earthquakes. But it doesn't stop there. What comes after will shake your view of everything. But is there something more terrifying behind these disasters? Something spiritual we haven't seen yet? These are certainly happening, but they have been happening for over 2,000 years. They are getting more intense. And what this intensity points to will soon become undeniable. So we certainly are in this first sign. There are already wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes and famine. But the next clue Jesus gives is even more urgent and far more personal. Ignore this next sign, and you may not survive the ones that follow. Jesus says, don't be deceived. He says that again and again, all the way through. That warning isn't just for the future, it's already being fulfilled in ways most people haven't noticed. And if you haven't noticed, you may already be caught in deception. As we get nearer to the end, the danger is deception, both inside and outside the church. In this case, he says, from false Christs, false messiahs. People who will take advantage of the turmoil of natural disasters to present themselves as saviors. There are well-known examples of people who pretended to be saviors and led people into desert locations, only to end in tragedy. However, there are many false Christs, false saviors who claim to be the promised deliverer from all our troubles. And every crisis creates another opportunity for them to rise. Crisis creates confusion, and confusion invites counterfeit salvation. The more problems there are, the more false deliverers there would be. But, as Jesus advises us, don't be alarmed. Don't be worried when you learn of a new war, a new tragedy, or a new famine breaking out. Not every comforting voice comes from Christ. Some will lead you straight to destruction. He said something astonishing. These are painful events, but they are not pangs of death. They are birth pains. So when you read of disasters in the media, these are the pains that mean something new is about to be born. This should completely change our attitude. We know what the world is coming to, but knowing is not the same as being ready. and many will be caught unprepared. And what's coming next will expose the difference between the two. But have we truly prepared our hearts for what comes next? We should not be alarmed or dismayed, not as worried as the world will be about these things. Disasters in the world are the pain of birth in a new world that is to be born. Therefore, we are very different. We have sympathy for those who are suffering disasters, and hopefully, we express it in help. But in our hearts, we are not alarmed. We are hopeful. We are looking for a new birth of a new world, and therefore, we are not dismayed or depressed by all the problems in the world. In short, Jesus' advice to us would be not to panic, not to be disturbed, but even to rejoice and say, these are all signs of something new happening. The second sign. The second sign of his coming is not in the world, but in the church. So what's happening inside the church right now that could signal the end? Disasters in the world are the first sign. The church, not the world, is the second sign of his coming. The first warning is disasters around the world. The second is changes in the church. Just as he divided the first sign into 3 parts, wars, earthquakes, and famines, he divides the second sign into 3 parts, all of which occur within the church. The first is persecution, that we will be hated in every nation. The second aspect of this sign would be a significant reduction in the church's size. Could the next wave of persecution cause a mass falling away in your own congregation? Most people's love will grow cold, and what Jesus says next will leave you breathless. When the whole church is under strain, many nominal Christians, if not all true Christians, would leave. Under the burdens of universal persecution, their love would grow cold. That's a very depressing sign. The big surprise in the third part of the sign is that the gospel will be preached to every racial group. The third part of the sign is that the gospel will be proclaimed. A smaller, purified church would have a greater impact on the planet. That is exactly what Jesus is implying. The most powerful movements often rise from the ashes. False prophets can be a source of deceit in all of this. We are aware of the teachings of false prophets. When there is no peace, they teach peace. Rather than being a source of challenge, their message is one of comfort. It's all right, it won't happen, they'll say. All is fine, everything is fantastic. The church is in good hands. That is a false prediction. They may be to blame for the large number of people who would leave the church at that time. And if you listen to them, your soul may be on the line. But what if the pressure becomes unbearable? How do you truly endure to the end? Now, Jesus' advice is to keep going. Don't give in to these false prophets. Whoever perseveres to the end will be saved. When that sign occurs, when all aspects of the church are despised by the world, that is Jesus' advice to all Christians. Why should that be the case? The answer is that wheat and tares grow together, and the closer they get to full maturity, the more tension there will be between them. So it's only natural that Christians will be under a lot of pressure in the end. Christians are social misfits, so there would be hatred. And when the final harvest comes, many we thought were wheat will be revealed as weeds. But will you be one of those who stands, or one of those who fades away? This world does not belong to us. Our citizenship is in the heavenly realms. We are unique, and it is because of our uniqueness that hate can arise. Since Jesus was so different from everyone else, he drew hate against himself. The further we go, the clearer the dividing line becomes. John 15 verse 19, if you were of the world, it would love you as its own. Instead, the world hates you because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world. It's not fun to be despised, but what comes next will shake the nations. Third sign. Everything we've discussed so far has been building to this. That takes us to the third sign of the end times, which is Jerusalem's distress. The world may try to ignore it, but Jerusalem will soon be the epicenter of a shaking no one can escape. Geographically, it will be very limited, and yet its consequences will ripple across the globe. In this passage, Jesus quotes Daniel's prophecies, and there is a character in Daniel's prophecies who is referred to as the abomination of desolation. Daniel mentions it 3 times. What does it all mean? What's the big deal? The answer will send chills down your spine. It's about a human being, a man who establishes himself in the very city of God, calls himself God, and refuses to accept anyone else's will above his own. A tyrant whose arrival will have global ramifications, but who will be centered in Jerusalem, the city of God, the holy place. Then Jesus says that the fourth sign of his coming will come immediately after that, so we shall know when he is coming. We shall be ready. But we're not finished. What Jesus reveals next is terrifyingly clear. When that sign comes, there will be no danger of false prophets or false messiahs. There will be no deception. It will be too quick. Here comes the most undeniable sign yet. What will happen is that all natural light will be switched off. This is not symbolic. This is the final shutdown of creation's warning system. But what if you're caught off guard? Will you even recognize the moment when it comes? The sun will go dark. The stars will fall. There are many predictions of this all the way through the Bible. Isaiah predicts it. The heavens will be rolled up like a carpet. From ancient scrolls to end-time skies, the pattern is undeniable. All the stars of heaven will be dissolved. The skies will be rolled up like a scroll, and all their stars will fall like withered leaves from the vine, like foliage from the fig tree, leaving only artificial light to illuminate the earth. What is happening? What is going on? People may ask. Panic will grip the world before clarity ever sets in. This is it! Christians will exclaim. But how will we know it's the real return and not a counterfeit before the final day? The sun, stars, and moon stop shining right before that happens. God turns off the lights of heaven to prepare for the blaze of light from the lightning that will mark his return. This is what every prophecy was pointing toward. Then he comes on the clouds back to planet Earth and we meet him. We are not meeting in an earthly stadium because there isn't one large enough to accommodate such a large crowd. We'll reach him in the air and that'll suffice. Isn't that a fantastic prospect? When you see all these things, you know he is at the gates, just about to walk through, he says. But not everyone will be ready when the gate opens. Number 2, the Battle of Armageddon. At the end of the tribulation, Jesus returns with the armies of heaven. He saves Jerusalem from annihilation and defeats the armies of the nations fighting under the banner of the Antichrist. The Antichrist and the false prophet are captured and thrown alive into the lake of fire, Revelation 19. But what if the real war is already starting, right under our noses? Armageddon is mentioned specifically only once in the Bible, in Revelation 16:16. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. Despite its singular mention, the concept has taken on significant importance in our thought and imagination. Why does one single verse carry the weight of the world's final war? Because one verse is all God needs to warn the world. Did you know that Armageddon is derived from the Hebrew Har-Megiddo, Har, meaning mountain, and Megiddo, which altogether means mountain of Megiddo. Megiddo itself is a historical site located in modern-day Israel, known for its strategic importance and as a place of numerous ancient battles. However, in the context of Revelation, Armageddon is not just a physical location, but symbolically represents the final battle between the forces of good and evil before the end of the world. And that battle may be closer than we dare admit. And in that final clash, no one will be neutral. Everyone will be forced to choose, and many will choose wrong. But here's the terrifying truth most people miss. Choosing wrong might not look evil at all. When people hear the word Armageddon, they often think of big, world-ending events. But the real danger is that most don't realize how close we already are. The name makes people think of a big fight between good and bad, and is often used in movies and books to talk about the world ending. But this name actually comes from old stories and places from a long time ago in the Middle East. What began as a battleground in Israel will end as a battleground for all mankind. Megiddo was an ancient city located at a strategic crossroad in northern Israel, which connected the vital trade routes of Egypt to the south and Mesopotamia to the north. This geographical significance meant that whoever controlled Megiddo had a distinct advantage, both economically and militarily. Because of its strategic importance, the city became a focal point for many battles over the centuries. Notably, the Bible recounts one of the earliest recorded battles at Megiddo, where the renowned judge of Israel, Deborah, and her general Barak triumphed over the Canaanite king Jabin and his commander Sisera in Judges 5. Their victory wasn't just military, it was prophetic. In the ancient lands of Israel, Megiddo wasn't just any place. It was a crucial crossroad, a place where many battles happened. One of the most memorable battles there involved a fearless woman named Deborah and her loyal general Barak. And so, at Megiddo, through the faith and bravery of Deborah, Barak and Jael, the Israelites saw the power of God at work, bringing them victory against overwhelming odds. But will that same divine power return in the final hour to intervene once again? Given its history as a battleground, it's not surprising that the prophetically inclined authors of the New Testament would draw upon Megiddo's legacy as a metaphor for the ultimate confrontation between good and evil. Its history is filled with battles and fights, which makes it a good symbol for the big final battle talked about in the book of Revelation. Revelation 16 verse 16, where Armageddon is referenced, comes after the pouring out of the sixth bowl of God's wrath, which causes the Euphrates River to dry up, thereby preparing a way for the kings of the east to come. This drying river is not just geographic, it's spiritual. It's the road. The he in this verse likely refers to an unclean spirit, or spirits, mentioned in the preceding verses, Revelation 16:13-14, which go forth to gather kings for battle. Revelation portrays a great end-times conflict between the forces of God and the forces of evil. Armageddon, in this narrative, becomes the gathering place for the world's armies under the influence of the dragon, beast, and false prophet to wage war against God and his people. This final showdown represents more than just a physical battle. It embodies the spiritual warfare that has raged throughout history, with Armageddon serving as the ultimate of this cosmic conflict. Every war, every deception, every idol has been building to this one final confrontation. In the final days before the great battle of Armageddon, the world would bear witness to events unlike any in its history, unfolding in rapid succession. First, the rise of the Antichrist. The Antichrist, a charismatic leader endowed with supernatural powers, would emerge amidst political turmoil and societal decay. His rise would not be sudden, but rather a calculated ascent to power. He would be charismatic, persuasive, and offer solutions to the world's problems that would captivate nations. He will look like the answer, but bring the end. And by the time the world realizes it, the trap will already be shut. The skies darken, and mysteriously, silence grips the earth. Over the plains of Megiddo, a vast army assembles. It's not just any army, it is the force of the Antichrist, people finally going against what God wants. These armies converge to make a last stand against the will of the Almighty. As tensions rise, a hush falls over the land. An impending storm is about to break loose. This isn't just a battle, it's the final stand between rebellion and righteousness. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. Revelation 19 verse 19. Who gave these kings the courage to defy the King of Kings? Suddenly, piercing the darkened sky, a radiant beam of light illuminates the horizon. And there, at the forefront, is a magnificent figure astride a white horse, the embodiment of righteousness and justice. It is Christ, returning in all his glory. This is the return the world scoffed at, the return that changes everything forever. After that, I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse appeared. The one who was riding it is called Faithful, trustworthy, loyal, incorruptible, steady, and true, and he passes judgment and wages war in righteousness, holiness, justice, and uprightness. Revelation 19 verse 11. Let's look at this picture of him. First, look at the horse. It's a war horse, a charger, not a donkey. A donkey isn't useful in battle, but a horse is. He has an army with him too. Look at his titles. Faithful and true, he keeps his promises and his word. Look at his purpose. He's coming to judge and make war in righteousness. Some people laugh at the idea of a just war, but here it is. The first, and maybe the only, truly just war in history. This war will be righteous. Now look at his appearance. His eyes are flaming with fire. Nothing is hidden from those eyes, and they burn with anger. He has many crowns on his head, showing his complete authority and sovereignty. Look at his names. One is the Word of God, and another is a name we don't even know. This shows a new part of his character that requires a new name. Look at his clothes. A robe that's a mix of white and red, white linen stained with blood. Sometimes, when I take communion and see the white bread and the red wine, I think of Jesus who's coming again. The same colors, white and red, remind us of his return. Look at his army behind him. During his time on earth, Jesus said, "Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels?" That's 12,000 troops. At that time he didn't use them, but now he will, against men. Look at his weapons, a sword and a rod. The sword comes from his mouth. Jesus fights with his words, and his words can heal or destroy. Above all, look at his title, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. No matter how many kings have existed, he's the supreme king. I remember watching the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. At one point, she was handed the Bible and told that it was the only law she was subject to. Here is the royal law. These are the lively oracles of God. In other words, even though she was queen, her authority was under someone greater. God. No one is higher than Jesus. He is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. What an amazing picture of Jesus. Here's the interesting part. This picture is what the Jews hoped was happening on Palm Sunday. They got one thing wrong though, the timing. How many today are making the same mistake, expecting peace when judgment is at the door? Many think they misunderstood Jesus, but they didn't. They knew their Bibles and believed God would send a conqueror to save them from their enemies. They knew God promised to set Jerusalem free. The only thing they got wrong was when it would happen. When Jesus came riding in on the donkey that day, they didn't realize he wasn't coming yet to restore the kingdom to Israel. So they shouted, "Hosanna," which means save us now, and blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Those words come from a passage where God promises to fight their enemies and defeat them. They weren't wrong to shout that, they just had the wrong time. Jesus couldn't defeat the enemies until he first came to die for them. That's what they misunderstood. When Jesus left the earth at the ascension, his followers asked him, "Lord, are you at this time going to restore the kingdom to Israel?" They wanted to know when he would fulfill that promise. Jesus didn't say, "I'm never going to do that. You have it all wrong." Instead, he said, "It is not for you to know the times or dates the Father has set by his own authority. He will do it, but not yet." This is where many people have misunderstood Jesus. They thought he chose a donkey because he would never fight. But that's not true. It was because it wasn't yet God's time to restore the kingdom. On Palm Sunday, they hoped he would take action, but it wasn't the right time. Now, in this passage, he comes to do what they had been waiting for. The battle of Armageddon, foretold for ages, is swift. The forces of evil, though vast and intimidating, are destroyed in the face of divine intervention. With the Antichrist defeated, a new era dawns. Christ establishes his millennial kingdom, bringing peace, justice, and righteousness to the world. But what comes after the victory is even more astonishing than the battle itself. No matter how powerful the forces of darkness may seem, they cannot prevail against the omnipotent will of the Almighty. As the dust settles and the earth rejoices, one thing remains clear. The eternal reign of Christ has begun, and with it, a new chapter in the story of redemption and grace. And yet, the closing of one chapter often signals the rising of a new storm. The Battle of Armageddon was not just a climax of warfare, but also a transformative turning point for humanity and the earth itself. Here, we delve into the profound consequences of this monumental event as depicted in the Holy Bible. The implications of Armageddon and the surrounding context in the book of Revelation are profound. Why does Revelation say Satan must be released again? This next twist in the prophecy will leave you speechless.